Welcome back to Less Than Geek. My name is Travis.
And I'm Peyton.
And this is our final video in our regional preparation series. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Scum Z-95 swarm using feedback arrays. So you've got 7 Z-95s here that are all the just 12-point cheapest one with feedback array added to it. So that allows you to, instead of taking a shot during the combat phase, deal 1 damage to yourself and ion yourself, but it allows you to deal 1 direct damage to any enemy ship within range 1. So that gives you a 360-degree coverage. It allows you to bypass defense dice and all the tokens and auto thrusters, all that kind of evasion stuff going on these days. And it allows you to even zap somebody that you bumped, that you didn't have a shot on. And it's the only illicit upgrade card so far that is reusable. Yep. Now, so this is, I think, probably the best pure true swarm in the meta right now. And to just kind of go over the reasoning behind that and the evolution a little bit. If you go back to the early days of the game with TIE Swarm kind of dominating the world, sometimes people would try playing just 8 generic TIEs for the maximum number of ships early on, but people ended up basically settling on Howlrunner with 7 of them because her ability was so strong it was worth giving up the 1 ship. Now that basically was the top build for like the first 3 waves. Yep. Some Rebel efficient 4-ship builds were able to compete with it in the 3rd wave, but it was still kind of like 50-50 even footing at best. Now the Phantom and a lot of the new stuff that came out, this emphasis on arc dodging and high agility and mitigation against things that only have like 2 attack dice, has kind of hurt the swarm in general. And the Howlrunner swarm specifically fell behind the curve due to all the arc dodging, because when you have her, you need to fly in that fixed brick of fighters, and you're very predictable. It's like having revolutionary war tactics where you just line up and march in perfect formation, and then having people using guerrilla tactics popping out of the trees and taking down the redcoats. That's exactly what's going on there now.
Tales old time.
Yep. So actually, in the wave 4 days, I actually took to a regional, just the 8-tie build. So it wasn't anything new, but it was just a shift, kind of like we talked before about in our Falcon video, how you have these staples in the meta that you kind of shift how you play them based on what's popular. So I actually went with that at the time because the 2 popular things were the Phantom mini swarm and the Falcon, right? So I figured that I could just swarm and beat down a Falcon, and generally that's how that matchup goes. And against the Phantom, just having the maximum number of bodies possible. Like if I had Howlrunner, I could have fly on a formation against anything that wasn't a Phantom, but then if I played against it, I was going to have to scatter and not use her anyway, right? So might as well just have the extra ship, have more guys to try to block the Phantom and its fancy tricks and whatnot. And it also was a thing based on how many points they would have to kill to win in time and things like that. You just spread it out as thinly as possible. So flash forward to present day. This is kind of sort of the best of both worlds. So you're back to having 7 of them, and you have some tricks there with the feedback array. Kind of like having Howlrunner's ability. Some tricks instead of just 8 generic guys. But you're able to fly at freeform with no downside, just however you need to try to block. Now the Zs, they don't have quite the maneuver dial of TIE fighters. They don't have the barrel roll and all, so they're not quite as good at blocking, but they're still pretty good. And at least Scum Zs are 1 pilot skill as well. And the feedback array just creates this little dead zone around each one that they have to at least be wary of. And so many ships right now, that's so good against if you can catch them. And you've got so many ships, it's hard not to. You can slowly wear down an IG-8, especially it's got a big base, so you got more ships in range 1.
And you basically fly like a net forward.
Yeah. So if you catch an IG in range 1 of 2 or 3 of them in 1 round, and then take a couple other pot shots, you might get it half dead in 1 round, and that's a huge victory for a list like this, because as soon as you take 1 of those down, life is infinitely easier. By then, even if they've killed like 1 or 2 of them, it's going to be hard for them to kill enough with just the 1 IG to get ahead on points. Yeah. If you're playing against interceptors, if you're playing against Soontir and company, first of all, you're playing against like Soontir Decimator, you scare Soontir enough to maybe keep him at bay.
And then you kill the Decimator.
And you just focus down the Decimator and murder it. Yeah. And then Soontir has to get a little more aggressive to try to kill, probably like 5 of these things to win on points.
Equal one Decimator.
And when he gets aggressive, he gets stupid. And he'll make some mistake, and you can block him and zap him. Because, again, even the ship that blocks something, that causes the bump, it can zap it, in the same round. So, yeah, you're actually in a pretty good spot against most matchups, really, in the meta, because you've either got big fat turret ships that you can just kind of shoot down with like Falcons and Decimator and stuff, or you got those high agility fancy ships that you try to catch in your net.
Ping.
I'd say your biggest weakness, it probably has to do with how you fly them, the formation. So you can put them all on one big brick again, but that kind of puts you back in that same problem that Howrunner had. You're a little predictable. You're a little less predictable because you can kind of break formation at any given time. Mm-hmm. So you can maybe just come in on the approach like that, and they kind of keep them guessing. They won't know exactly how you're going to do it. And you could have maybe some sort of practiced, fancy formation you try to home to, spring a trap. Something that Howrunner and company wouldn't have done because they would have wanted to stay together. Or you could, just from the get-go, spread them out kind of like we have here, maybe set up sort of like a picket line. Obviously, you're going to have like asteroids here or there or whatever. They're going to kind of have to break that up a bit. But that goes back in what we were talking about in one of the other videos of the new obstacle rules. Like, this is a perfect build where you would bring like the 3 smallest obstacles you could find and
you bring the debris.
Right.
So that you're not even going to, most likely not even take damage and still be able to fire. You can still even feedback array.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, so you can set up sort of a picket line here, and that makes it kind of hard for them to avoid. I even like kind of a happy medium where, because the one thing I feel like if you do this, if they approach it the right way, they can maybe go all in on like one guy in the end, try to just focus him down and destroy him, and then with say interceptors or whatever. And then as you try to react to that, they can just blast past you, regroup, and just come back and forth, keep doing that. Yeah. Just try to punch a hole through your line. So maybe a happy medium here where you kind of have like a group of 3 of them tight together to kind of overlap, maybe another 2 and another 2. Because you don't really have to cover the entire board. If you set up all 3 of your groups in the middle, like say 2/3 of the board here, you can react to going one way or the other to, based on where they deploy after. So, this is just, I think, kind of the new age Wave 6 Swarm. Using basically, it's a one-trick pony, but it's a pretty good trick. You get to use it over and over again. You're doing a little bit of damage to yourself, true, but a lot of times at the end of these games with a Swarm list, you end up with ships that are like, these 3 guys are completely untouched.
Yeah, because they're going to be focusing to get them points.
Yeah, so, and then maybe they try to focus, but they blast a guy and, he veers off or whatever. The damage gets kind of spread out. So sometimes, you've got guys that have a couple health to give kind of and to use that offensively. You're taking all 28 health you have and using it as a threat to do some damage. So, ideally you end the game with a bunch of guys that have 1 and 2 health left, and a bunch of dead opponents.
It is also funny that you can basically feedback array every turn.
Yeah.
Because it just gives you an ion token, so you can still just move forward and say, I'm going to feedback array again.
Yeah.
Especially if you get them into a position where they just keep bonking all the way back to their initial position with large base ships.
Yeah.
You can just keep feedbacking with that same unit he keeps landing on at the end.
Right. Yeah, and I can even see a situation where, let's say this guy does the feedback, and then now they know he's going to be here, and, he's taking at least 1 damage. They just try to get some shots on him to, get some points. You can use that knowledge to your advantage. Maybe now these 3 guys bank in or waiting to just blast the crap out of, or, these guys are all within range 1.
Or you do this little maneuver
so
he doesn't go all the way there.
Yeah.
And suddenly he's got shots and he feedbacks.
Yeah, that's a dirty trick. It's another reason why, so right now with the 7 of these, or this 11, it's 98 points. And I don't see a whole lot of advantage to doing an initiative bid with this for the most part. It's nice if you happen to run up against some other TIE fighters or 1 pilot skill and mirror match. Maybe you want to be able to move first. Yeah. But for the most part, there's nothing to that. But really the only thing you can do on points is upgrade a couple to 3 pilot skill, which I don't think does a whole lot in the meta, first of all. And second, it's a detriment because it's nice to have a uniform pilot skill on all of them, so you can move them and shoot in whatever order you want. So you can do a trick like what you were just saying, where you can have one block the other. But yeah, so that will sum up our thoughts on this list. We have now done a full rundown of basically every list that we wanted to really address that we thought was either pretty good in the meta or
interesting.
Yeah, interesting, or like something we expect to see a lot of for regionals. We'll have our regionals coverage coming up soon once those get started. So if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe, like us. We'll see you next time.